So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of Scale Up India. I'm Abhishek Verma and you are watching the Hibernate series. So in this video, we are going to discuss why do we need Hibernate, what is Hibernate, and how we are going to configure the Hibernate. Now in this video, we are not going to start with the main project as it is, but it is just going to be a basic project for the Hibernate part. And the same thing we are going to reuse in all our next upcoming videos as well as demos. Now this video will be having two parts. First part is going to be a bit theoretical because I will be explaining with the help of a deck, but still it is going to be interesting. And the second part is going to be practical, hence it is going to be even much more interesting here. And before you are going to start this video, I assume that you have already watched the part 1 of the Hibernate, where we have just explained you that how we are going to perform all the operations just with the help of JDBC. Now if you will watch that video also, then it is going to be easier for you to compare both the things, both the technologies, and you can easily understand that why do we need to go for Hibernate. So let's get started. So before we start with the Hibernate, let's try to understand why do we need this particular technology. And for this, we will be going with the problem of object relational impedance mismatch. Now it's a very big name, and hence the problem is also that much big. Let's try to understand what it is step by step. And again, this is a very interesting thing because in your interview questions also it can be asked. So there are approximately like 4 or 5 parts under this problem whenever you want to explain this. So please try to understand it step by step so that you can answer it accordingly. So the point is that here, when we are making usage of Java, then Java is an object-oriented programming language. So here we are going to have classes and objects. But on the different side, where we are going to have a database, so there it is going to be a relational database. So it's a complete different technology. Now what happens is that whenever we try to map an object to a row in the database, then multiple problems get arise. Now let's try to understand all those problems which are going to arise whenever we are going to map an object to the database, or you can say the database to the object. So here I'm just making usage of database word instead of row. So just try to understand that. Yeah. So let's try to go with the first problem. Now the first problem is known as problem of granularity. Now let's see what it is. So here in front of us we have an owner class. Now this owner, so here it goes. So this owner is having an ID which is an integer. So maybe we can say it is going to be its primary key, by which we can understand that okay, this is a unique owner. Then we have the first name, last name, gender, city, state, mobile number, email ID, and then this owner is having a pet also. But this pet is not a string or it's not an integer or anything else. Instead, it's a complete class in itself. So it's going to be a class something like this, pet, where again the pet can have an ID, name, birth date, gender, and type. So hence we can see that in Java, in order to have an owner and a pet, we have two classes. If you wish, you can even just create a single class, and then also it is going to be very well and good. But in order to make it more easier, so that we can set the values easily, we can fetch the values easily, and we can try to understand our problem more better, we generally create multiple classes like this. And then we try to have a one-to-one relationship, or we can say has a relationship. So we will always say owner has a pet, something like this. But the same thing when I try to map into my database, then there I can go for a single table. Again in this single table, I can have my ID, first name, last name, gender, city, state, even pet ID, pet name, and all these things. Now again you can also say that okay, here also you can go for two different tables. It can be an owner table, it can be a pet table, and yeah, that can be done. But the problem is that if I make usage of JDBC and then I have two different tables, then I need to make usage of joins, which is going to increase my problem. And even when we are going to query the things, then also let's say it is going to be easier. We will make usage of a particular join and then it can be done. But we need to perform other operations also, like insertion, deletion. We need to update the data also. So then it becomes little difficult with two tables. So hence some developer may try to go with a single table. So then we will go for a single table. But then what is the issue? So the issue is that the number of classes are 2 in Java, but in database we just have a single table. So hence there is a particular mismatch, and this problem itself is known as problem of granularity. So that was a very first problem. So the next problem is problem of subtype. Now this is again an interesting problem. So let's say we have a pet here which is having some ID, name, gender and type. Now this pet can be further of two types. It can be a domestic pet, it can be a wild pet. Now you may say that, okay, what do we mean by a wild pet? Okay, like that sounds like a little strange idea, but let's try to understand it from some different perspectives. So let's say there is something like a wildlife sanctuary and there exists some animal and you are just paying for that animal's food or something like this for the living for that, and sometimes it happens and hence we can adopt those animals also. Although it is not going to be a case that that animal is going to live with you and you can spend more time with that animal, but still you can spend a little bit amount of time with that, and hence we can consider it to be a wild pet. And also that suits our example also for Pakistan. So what we have done is that in order to differentiate these two, for the domestic pet we are saying that besides these details we will be having a local date, which is its date of birth, because it's a domestic so we know its date of birth. But for the wild pet, let's say we don't know the date of birth, but we know a place of birth, and hence it's a string. So that's fine as of now. You can think of any other scenario also, but as of now only this came into my mind along with the Pakistan application. You can tell me if there can be some different way also of having this. So here I mentioned that there we are going to have three classes and there is going to be something like inheritance, which is obviously there in Java. But in terms of table, what we can do is we can just create two different tables. It can be a domestic pet table, it can be a wild pet table. Now in the domestic pet table we can have something like date of birth, and in the wild pet table it can be a pet place of birth. So instead of a single table where I'm having both the columns as date of birth and place of birth, I'm just trying to make two different tables, a domestic and a wild pet table. So that is also fine. But now the problem is that in OOP we have inheritance. Like in Java we have inheritance, but generally in database we don't have anything as such directly as inheritance. I mean directly it's not there. With the help of Hibernate we will try to have inheritance, but it is not directly thing available with the database. You can go for two different tables like this, or another possibility is you can just go with a single table with both the columns at date of birth and place of birth. And then the disadvantage is that some of the data will remain null. For the domestic pets the place will remain null. For the different let's say wild pet, date of birth is going to remain null. So instead of it, if we go by this, then again we are having two different tables. Yeah. So that's the second problem, that we don't have inheritance in the database side, but it is there on our language side. So that is the thing. Now the third problem is problem of association. Now again you will say that again I have opened that same thing, owner and pet. So yeah, that is the thing. All these problems are very much interrelated with each other. Yeah. So we just need to try to understand them. So here the problem is that here we say owner has a pet, something like this. There is one owner class, there is a pet class, and we say owner has a pet. So this is a has a relationship. And as of now I'm not saying that whether it is a one-to-one mapping or what kind of mapping. I'm just saying owner has a pet. But the same thing when we try to do it in our table, and let's say we this time we go for two different tables. Let's say this is an owner table, this is a pet table. So now here how we are going to refer that this owner is only having this pet with the help of this column pet underscore id. And here we say that this pet underscore id is the foreign key. So in the OOP, the thing which we explained with the help of has a relationship, with the help of association. In the database, same thing we need to do with the help of a foreign key column. So that's the problem of association. There it's a whole type itself, and here it is just a separate column, a foreign key. So here you can see that pet underscore id. So this column is available in both the tables. So that is the problem here. I mean, there is no direct way that you can say the pet column here and then you can refer. So that is not a way. This is the only thing which you can do here with the help of foreign key. So this was the third one, problem of association. Now let's see the next one. The next is problem of identity. So again, let's say this is an owner class, and in between I will keep on switching like this. Sometimes I may just make usage of a single class, sometimes both the classes, in order to explain my problems. So here we say that how do we understand whether two owner objects are different or not. So let's say I have made something like owner O1 equals to new of owner with some data, and then I say owner O2 equals to again new of owner again with some kind of data. So here, how will you say that both the owners are same or not? So you will say that in Java we have basically two different ways. One option is that we can make usage of equals method. Now what equals method will do is equals method will check their contents. Obviously we need to override the equals method, only then it will check. So maybe in the overridden method we can say that if two owners have the same gender, same email ID, same mobile number, same name, then they will be considered as the same owner. Yeah, it may happen that later on the city or state got updated, but other things will remain same. Or the other way is that you can make usage of double equal to operator. So that also can be done. So even if the IDs are separate, we can still say that owners are same, either on the basis of double equal to operator, where it is going to check their addresses, or we can make usage of the equals method, where it is our choice which all parameters we wish to take. Maybe we just wish to take the email ID and mobile number, being it a unique thing, because ID, let's say I just try to edit the same owner twice. Yeah? So that can be done. But on the database side, in order to say whether the two rows, like whether these two rows are same or not, the only thing which we have is this ID, because here we consider one of the columns as the primary key. Now you may say that why you are considering this ID as a primary key, why not mobile number as a primary key? Because again, that is your choice. You can consider any of the columns. But the thing is, let's say if we are making usage of this ID as a primary key, then just on the basis of this ID, we can understand whether these two rows are same or not. So currently, since these two IDs are different, so it will be considered as two different records, although you can see the whole data is even same. So that is the problem of identity. In Java, we are making usage of equals method and double equal to operator, but in database, we are making usage of primary key. And then it depends on us whether we are making a simple primary key or a composite primary key. But again, the choice matters, and it can result in different kinds of issues. So that we are discussing here. And the last but not the least is the fifth problem of data navigation. So here, let's say that I ask you that I'll provide you an owner, something like O1, and from that owner O1, you just need to provide me the gender of pet. So what will you do? So generally you will say O1 something like dot get owner, or by some means you will try to get the owner object. So you will say get owner, then you will say dot operator, then you will say get pet, then again you will say a dot operator, and then you will say get gender. So this is the way you are going to navigate the data from the owner to the pet with the help of the dot operator. So here this dot operator is very important for us, with the help of which we are navigating. But in terms of database, here when we want to do the same thing, then we will say select p dot pet underscore gender, that is we want to select this particular thing from owner table O inner join pet table p. So here we are making a join here, and then we will give the condition that where this ID is same as this ID and the owner ID is 1. So this is the way. So here we will be making usage of joins. Here we don't have any dot operator as such. I mean, you will again say that okay, you are making usage of dot here, but this is not that same dot operator. Like here you can't say o dot pet gender. That is not possible. So by this way we need to give the inner join here. So that is the problem of data navigation, that in Java we use a dot operator, but here we make usage of joins. So these are the basically 5 different problems which we say we have with the help of object relational impedance mismatch. That is the problem of identity, the problem of data navigation, the problem of granularity, the problem of subtype, and the problem of association. So all different problems are there. Now let's see then what is the solution of these problems and how all these problems can be solved. Let's try to understand. So the solution is that we can make usage of object relational mapping. So all these problems can be solved if we have something like object relational mapping here. Now what it is and how it is going to solve the problems. Let's see. So ORM basically is object relational impedance mismatch. It is going to resolve this particular problem, and that is the short form, like we can call it as ORM, object relational mapping. And the problem was object relational impedance mismatch, or you can call it as ORIM, which is not generally used, but don't get confused between these two. Now what it does is it handles the lower level interaction with the database. So it will help you to take all the things from your code to the database and will help you with the lower level interaction. Like you don't need to do too many things from your side. Now if we are making usage of ORM, then it will also help you to get rid of those messy SQL. So you don't even need to work with those messy SQL. Directly this can resolve your most of the issues. That also we will see that how it is possible that without making usage of SQL we can even interact, we can save the data, get the data, update, delete, and do everything. So that we are going to see. So what it does is ORM says that I will help the developer to concentrate on the business logic. So as a developer you just need to focus more on the service layer and less on the data access layer or the repository layer. Now ORM, another interesting part is that it is database independent. So it doesn't mean that ORM is going to work with MySQL only or PostgreSQL only or any other different database. It can work with any kind of database, and many languages provide this. Now this ORM is just an idea. Now in order to implement this idea, there are different frameworks. So we have something like Hibernate, which is one of the popular tools. Then there is something like Eclipse Link, which is from some different provider. Then we have something like MyBetis. So earlier I guess it was known as iBetis, now we call it as MyBetis. So these are the different popular tools using which we try to resolve the problem of this object relational impedance mismatch, and all these tools will make usage of your ORM. Hence we say that Hibernate is a tool which is made upon ORM framework. So this way we call it as. So this is the thing. So I have told you that okay, ORM will do this, ORM will do that, but the point is still how will ORM do all these things? So the thing is that let's say you have this pet class. So what it will do is ORM is going to map your pet class to the pet table. Now how it will do that we'll see in some time, but it is going to help you to do this. Then it is going to map all your variables to the columns, something like this. And again you see the interesting part is sometimes it may happen that your variable name and the column name are not even going to match. Like here it is just an ID, but this is pet underscore ID. Here it is birth date, but it is pet underscore date underscore of underscore birth. So even the names are different, it can still help you to map the things. And the third part is it is going to map your object. So let's say this is an object we created with the help of new of pet and we gave up some data. So it is going to map this object to this particular row. So class to table, variables to columns, and object to the row. And this can be done with the help of ORM. Again, you will say that, okay, then this is also a good thing, but how will it do? Yeah, so that becomes a question that how this is going to do. So we will see in the next slides. Let's see till then. So that was about the ORM. Now let's see what is Hibernate, because we are going to use this tool only. Now why this tool only? Because this is one of the most popular tools which is used in the market as of now. Yeah. And hence we are going to use this. This is like widely used and this is open source. So you don't need to purchase any license or anything. So you can use it for free. Then what it does is, as I told you, that it is going to help you in order to interact from the Java application to the database and from the database to the Java application. So it is going to make that interaction very simple. You don't need to take care of most of the things which you were worrying when working directly with the JDBC, like connections and all these things. It is going to make more things easier. Then another interesting thing is that not only the mapping part, but if you remember when we were working with the JDBC, like in our demo 0, there for the insertion we wrote some big SQL query. For selecting the data we wrote some SQL query, updating, deleting we wrote some SQL query. Imagine if there are some joins, then even much more bigger SQL query. So here it says that you don't need to work with the SQL. I will provide you the methods for default operations. So for most of the default operations, it is going to provide you the methods as it is, which you can use. But this doesn't mean that you are not going to be able to use the query at all. For that also, it provides you something which we call as Hibernate query language. Now what is Hibernate query language? That we are not going to cover in this video. It will be covered in almost, I guess, 15th or 16th demo, but not as of now. So it still supports the Hibernate query language as well as the native SQL, which you already know, your structured query language. So it supports that also, but why to go for those things when you are having operations, the methods for most of the things. Then another interesting thing is that it is going to help you with the caching part. So let's say that you are fetching the same data from the database again and again. So instead of fetching the data from the database, it will store the things in a particular cache and then it will try to see whether the data is in that cache or not. If it is there, then it won't go to the database. It will directly give you. Now the benefit is that it is going to make your application faster, because again interacting with the database will take some time. Although that time is in very few milliseconds, but it will take time. So caching can help here. Again, how to use it, that is going to be almost like 17th or 18th demo. And see, that's the range. I have made almost like 20 demos for this. So this Hibernate is going to be a very big topic. So you don't need to lose hope. You need to stay motivated in order to learn all the things. Why I have made so many demos? So that I can explain all the things in a simplest way. And you also have enough time in order to learn each and everything. We are not going to rush from all the topics. Yeah. And last and not the least important part is that it is going to implement the JPA specification. Now you will say that, okay, first of all, you started with object relational impedance mismatch, which was the problem. Then you said that solution is ORM, object relational mapping. Then you said that, okay, for that the tool is Hibernate. That also we understood. Now what is this JPA? So let's try to see what is this JPA in the next slide. So we say that this JPA is Java Persistence API. And this is just a kind of a specification. Or you can say it is just going to be something like a set of rules. Now the question is, why do we need these set of rules? Because just now we saw that in order to have this ORM, there are multiple tools. We have Hibernate here, then we have Eclipse link here, and then we have MySQL also here. So let's try to understand that today you are working in a particular project and you are making usage of Hibernate. Now tomorrow your boss comes to you and he or she says that, okay, from now onwards, instead of Hibernate, we are going to switch completely to Eclipse link or MySQL due to some XYZ reason. Maybe they provide you something more better, or it can be any other reason also. Now that means that in all your code, whatever the things you did with the help of Hibernate, now you need to do with the help of Eclipse link. And both of these are coming from different providers. So since both of them are coming from different providers, they are going to have different annotations also maybe. They will be having different ways of saving the data, different method names basically. I mean, they will do the ORM, but their method names are going to be different. Maybe the way you need to configure the things, that is going to be different. Hence, it is going to be a problematic situation when we move to from one provider to another provider. You can tell me in the comment whether it is going to be difficult or not, because and the same difficulty people face when they are moving from like Android to Apple or Apple to Android. So then also people feel the difficulty, although there you just need to use the thing, and here you need to code the thing. So obviously things are going to be difficult. Hence, in order to resolve this difficulty, they made something like Java Persistence API. Now what it will do is, it is going to provide you a specification. It is going to generalize the things. It says that it is your choice whatever the functionality you want to provide to the user. That's a separate thing. But at minimum, you need to follow some of the rules. That okay, these are some of the basic methods which you need to implement. So what will happen is that this JPA will tell that okay, there is going to be some method like find by ID. And all the providers needs to implement that method find by ID, so that from the database, if you want to fetch, you can make usage of that find by ID. Beside this, if any tool wants, they can make usage of get by ID or search by ID or some different method also. But that common method they need to use, and this is just an example. Then most of the annotations also of the ORM annotations, that are also going to be common among all these things. So hence JPA is going to be a specification, and all these tools are going to follow those specifications. Beside this, they can perform extra things. Now the benefit of following those specification is that instead of a Hibernate specific method, if you are using a JPA specific method, then you can easily switch to the Eclipse link, and then for us it is going to be as easy as just changing the dependency in pom.xml and just very few more things, but we don't need to change the whole code as it is. So that is the JPA thing. And the interesting part is that end of this whole series, where we are going to complete all the 19 demos, the last 20th demo will be made just with the help of JPA. And there I will practically show you that how we can easily switch from Hibernate to Eclipse link in the video itself. So all these things are covered till that much detail. The only thing is that you need to support till that particular point. You need to watch and you need to share it with others also. So after this, let's not talk more about JP as of now. We will talk there, and let's come for the why part, like how we are going to perform these things. So here we see the Hibernate architecture. So here, like last time, if you remember in demo 0, I shown you we have a presentation layer. For us, it can be something like a class with the main method, and we are just making usage of scanner and not any web application as such. Then we are having something like a business logic layer. You can say a service layer where we are going to have some if-else conditions and all those things. So that will be covered up here. Then we are going to have a data access layer, where we used to have our all the repository methods like finding something, inserting the data, updating the data, and deleting the data. So you remember we used to write that much big methods. I'm not going to show you the same thing again because I have covered it in detail in the previous video. So these layers are still there. And the main thing we need to change in this data access layer only. Now after this, if you remember, the next part was directly JDBC. And I told you that JDBC is not going to be any layer as such, but we are going to make usage of JDBC in order to interact with the database. But here, it is going to be a JPA. So we are going to make usage of that specification obviously, because we also want that tomorrow, if you want to switch from Hibernate to some other tool, you are not going to change all the things completely. There should be a JPA, and it is just a specification. Again, it is not going to be a separate class or all those things like as such. So JPA will come into the picture. Then Hibernate will come into the picture as a tool. So only JPA is not going to solve the problem. you need JP is just a specification, and in order to have the implementation of a specification, we need a tool. It can be Hibernate, it can be Eclipse Link, it can be MySQL, it can be anything. And then again, this Hibernate is not going to interact with the database directly. It is still going to make usage of JDBC, and JDBC will do that thing. So that means that it doesn't mean the moment we start making usage of ORM or Hibernate or JPA, we are going to forget everything about JDBC. JDBC is still there. It is still working behind the curtains for us. It is doing all those things which it was doing earlier also. SQL is still there. Whenever we are working with the HQL, it is actually converting it to SQL only at behind the scenes. So all those things are there, and the ORM part is being provided by these two particular things, the Hibernate as a tool and JP as a specification, and they are going to make usage of JDBC. But still, you don't need to do too much work whatever you were doing last time. So this is the particular architecture now, and just this is going to be a different way of architecture, like I'm showing you. Like some of you may say that okay, this is not something common which we see generally, so it is just a different way of explaining you the thing. If you want to have all those traditional ways, then there are even too many different videos. Yeah, so that's a little different way. Let's see the next part. Now let's see how we are going to configure this Hibernate, and this is almost the last part of our deck. Then we are going to do the things practically for sure. Now for this, first of all, we need a dependency. Now I told you that since we are going to interact with the database, and it can be something like a MySQL, it can be PostgreSQL, H2 or any other, so you will obviously need that dependency. But beside this, we need a Hibernate dependency also, because that is the tool which we are going to use. You don't need any specific JPA dependency here, because the moment you are making usage of Hibernate, it is automatically providing you the JPA. Same way, if you are making usage of Eclipse Link, it is automatically providing you the JPA. So you just need to have one single Hibernate dependency as of now, and that is Hibernate-core, and this version is going to keep on getting updated. I'll show you how to get this dependency in code. Now the next thing is that we need to map the things. So let's see the different mapping techniques and understand which mapping technique we are going to use in all our videos. So let's say we have this particular owner class with us. Now this owner class, as of now in our code, it is going to be very big, but here I have just taken only 4 different variables, and you see their data types are also different. So first one is a primitive data type int, second one is a string which is non-primitive, then we have gender which is an enum here, and then here we have something like a local date. So it's a complete separate object. Let's try to see how we can map this to our database with the help of ORM. So for this one, first option is that we can have something like a owner.hbm.xml file. So this is an XML file where HBM means Hibernate mapping. So HBM, Hibernate mapping, and this owner is generally the name we keep. So let's say if your class is pet, you will say pet.hbm.xml. Now you will say that why only this name, why not any other name? So these are the default names in order to make your job easier. If you are going to go with some different names, then still you need to map those things, and then there won't be anything like standard as such. So we need to maintain some standards. So in this file, it will be an XML, so you need to be a little bit XML expert for this. So we will be having this Hibernate mapping tag first of all, where we are going to mention the package name, in which we have this owner class. So we have the owner class in this entity package, so that is fine here, and we are closing the tag. Then after this, we need to map the class. So we are saying that our class name is owner, and the table name will be owner_table. It is your choice, whatever the table name you wish. If I would have just told here owner, then you would have saved that okay, these needs to be same, hence I went for a different one. Then now I want to map all the variables also. So for this, first of all, for ID, I will do it like this: ID, then this name. Now this name is same as this name of my class. Then type is the data type, which is an int. For primitives, it is that easy. You can just say int, float, or double, something like this. And then this is the column name you are going to have in your table. The column name is again ID here. So this is the way you need to do. Then the next one is first name. So we will say here property. This is the name. The variable name is first name. The type is this time java.lang.string. If you will say directly string, it won't understand, because int is also there in the database. It will be able to map it to the integer, but string is something specific to Java. Hence we need to give the complete address for that particular string, that in which particular package we have that string. Then the column name is first underscore name, because generally in the database we write it along with the snake case approach, and in the Java we do make usage of the camel case approach. And then I want to say that it should be a non-null field. So I will say here that not null equals to true, because by default all the fields are going to be null. They can have the null values. I don't want to be a null value, so it's a not null true. Then for the gender, let's see. So for gender it is going to be even a little bit more difficult. Why? Because property tag is there, name is there, column is there, not null is there. The gender is an enum created by you. So first of all we need to say, we need to map it along with that. So we will say this enum type from the Hibernate. So this Hibernate will help us in order to map this enum to that particular database data type. And then we need to say it's an enum class, and this is the name of that particular class, again from where this gender is coming. And then the same thing we are going to do with the local date. For local date, this is by default in Java, so we will just say java.time, same way we told for the string. So these are the things which we need to use. If you want to make it unique, you just need to say here unique equals to true and all these things. Now one thing you will notice, and you will say me that okay, for all others you made usage of property, but for the first one you just made usage of ID. Why is it so? Because the reason is, whenever I will be going to the database, I need to make something as my primary key. Any column I can make as my primary key. It can be the name, gender, or anything. That is your choice, depending on your problem statement. As of now, for me the name cannot be a primary key, depending on my scenario. So I will make it as ID. Now whatever is your primary key, the easiest way of saying is that instead of using the property tag, you just use ID for this. So this ID will become your primary key automatically, and then all others you are making usage as property. Now the question is, can there be a single primary key only, or can we have multiple primary key? So the answer is you can have multiple primary keys also, which we call as composite primary key, and we are going to cover in our upcoming videos. But as of now, this is the simplest thing. So this we understood. Now let's see the problem. The problem is, we are a Java developer, and for us working with the XML is little difficult, and sometimes it becomes scary also, because imagine you just made a very simple mistake here in the spelling. Let's say in the Hibernate spelling you made some mistake. Here you wrote this C as small, or here you just made any spelling mistake. Instead of enums you just wrote enum, and then it is going to be very difficult for you to identify the issue. And then we will feel that okay, Hibernate is a difficult thing. So in order to make it easier, instead of using the XML, Hibernate also understood our problem, and they said that okay, if you are facing issues with the XML, I'll tell you a different way which is even much more easier, and we are going to use that way in all our demos, not the XML way. It's an older one. If you wish, you can still make usage of this. I have told you, just instead of my mappings you need to go for something mapping like this, or you can watch some older video also on the YouTube, that will also do the job. So the different second way is that again we have this owner class. You will say we were having this already. Now let's see the magic. So here if you want to say that for this class you want to make a table, you will just say @entity. Now this @entity is being provided by the JPA, not the Hibernate. It is from the JPA itself. It is from Hibernate also. They have overridden also, but generally we make usage of JPA, so that tomorrow when we switch, we don't need to change this class as it is, and we can use the whole thing as it is. So @entity, just to make a table. Now when you will make a table like this, the by default name will be your class name only. So it will take the name as owner. Let's say I want to give a different table name. So I will say here @table, and then you can provide whatever the table name you want to give. So I hope that you understood. In order to make a table, we will say entity. In order to give a different table name from the default one, we will say @table, and we can specify, you can specify my name also if you wish. I don't think so you will do that. Then later on, let's come for the next part. Now we need to make this ID as the primary key. So there we to use the ID tag. Here we just need to say @ID. Now when the moment you are saying @ID, by default it had understood that since it's a primary key, it is going to be not null in nature. Now for this ID, if you want to use a different name, then we can have something like @column. So with the help of @column, we can make usage of different name also. If you are happy with the same name, then it will be using the same name only. Now you will see that for this first name and pet date of birth, basically I have made usage of this name part, but for this gender I haven't used. For ID I also haven't used. Yeah, the reason is that basically here you see I'm making usage of the camel case approach. So if I want to write the name thing here, then in the database also it will name it like first name only as it is. And generally in the database we don't make usage of the camel case. There we go for the snake case approach. Hence it's a good practice that whenever your names are bigger, you make usage of name. And if your names are simpler like this gender or ID, then you don't make usage of name. Another thing is that if you want to make usage of a complete different name, so let's say here it was pet birth date, but there I want to use pet underscore date underscore of underscore birth, then also you can go for the name. So I hope that is clear that using name is optional, and that is generally used when you want to give a different name or you want to go for the snake case approach, which is a good approach generally. So generally we have all these things. Then if you want to make it nullable, you say that okay, I don't want non-null values, so you will say nullable equals to false. By default this nullable is true. Why don't we need it for the ID? Because it's a primary key can't be null in nature. So all other things are gone. And you see the interesting part, for string and local date you don't need to do any extra hard work this time. Automatically it is going to map the things, even for the gender. But there's a little different part for the gender, that gender is an enum created by you. So for this one we need to have something like @enumerated also. So one more annotation is required so that Hibernate can map this thing to some particular kind of data type. So here we need to say enumerated. So for us it is going to be a gender, but whenever the same thing will be saved in the database, it will be considered as a string. So here if your gender is capital M, so that's a enum capital M, but in database it is going to be a string capital M. So this is the way, and I hope that you will also agree with me that this one is easier as compared to the previous one. I mean, you need to have this class in both the cases. So instead of a separate XML file, it's far more easier to do the things here. You are saving your class also, you are saving your hard work of having that XML file also. And if you agree with me, then please subscribe and give a comment that yes, you agree with me. If you don't agree, then you say that why you want to go for that particular approach. Maybe depending on your project needs. So that's obvious. I mean, that is understandable. Yeah. So that was all about mapping. Now the second and important part is that we need to have some database configuration also. So this was first hard work. Second hard work is the database configuration. So for this also there are 3 techniques, and we will see all of them one by one, and we will choose which one we are going to use in all our demos. So the first one is you go for again an XML file. The name is generally hibernate.cfg, where CFG stands for configuration. Hibernate.configuration.xml, and this is the general way. You say hibernate-configuration, then you will create something like a session factory. I will say what is this session factory in some time, and then you provide all the properties. So generally if you remember when we were working with the JDBC, at that time we were also using these properties. So we were mentioning the driver name, the database URL, username, password, so all these we were using. Then what is this HBM2DDL that I will show while I will be coding. Then this is show SQL, I'll tell you while we are going to code, but this is one of the ways for XML. Now only writing this is not enough. you need to have one Java class also beside this, and that can be your database config.java. So there we will be creating a method which is going to provide you the session factory. Now there we will say configuration, so that is the class we are going to use. So we will say new of configuration, and then we will say dot configure. So the moment we are going to say dot configure, it is going to automatically load this particular file, and that's the magic of using the default names. If you say no, I want to go for some different file name, abc.cfg.xml, then you need to give the address of that file here. But if you will use the default name, you don't need to mention, it will be automatically read by your configuration. So you have loaded this. Now we need to load the mapping class also. So we will say add annotated class owner.class. So there we were doing the mapping, and here we need to load that class also, that okay, this is my annotated class. Otherwise it will keep on scanning the whole project and it will keep on wasting your time. So we need to tell it like this, and this is mandatory. Otherwise it is not even going to work. Yep. So that is the thing. Once this part is done, then afterwards we will have a little bit of code in order to return the session factory that I will directly show in the code. But minimum this thing is required. That is a configuration file, and then this particular class, where with the help of configuration you will say configure. This will automatically load this file, and then you will say annotated class. So if you are having multiple, so you will keep on saying add annotated class again and again and load all the classes. Now again, the difficulty. The difficulty is it is using XML. There are chances we will make a mistake here, so we should not be using this. If you still wish, that is your choice. Like some of you may want to use, yeah, that is again depending on the project needs. If your project is very older, maybe that's why you want to use, or it can be some other reason. You can tell me in the comments what can be the reason. Yeah. Now the second way is more interesting. This time you directly need to go for the database config. Like the last time, same session factory. You need to go for the same configuration. You will say that this we did last time also. We did configuration, annotated class, and this comment. Now where are the properties? So this time the properties are directly loaded. So instead of having a separate XML file, we can directly say here with the configuration set property. So this method is provided. Generally we are going to set all the properties before annotated classes, and here you can mention all these. Now the point to remember is here it is something like a key value pair. So this is your key, second value, key value, and everything is in as a string only. So even if it is a number, it needs to be within a string only here, something like this. And all the names are something designated names. So I will tell you that how you can get all these names in a while, but this is the way you want to use. Now you will say that okay, this one looks better. This time we don't need to make usage of XML file, and hence this is a good approach. And that can be said, yeah, this is a fine approach, but still there is a problem with this. Now the problem is, let's say that tomorrow your URL will change, or username or password is going to change. Then what will you do? You need to change it again. You need to recompile your class. You will say that okay, if we need to recompile the class, then we will make usage of some properties file, and we will read from those properties here. So on the top we will make some kind of, let's say, static final string variables. We will read all the properties here. We remember it from the JDBC, and it's a good answer. You can do that. What if I say there is even much more easier way? Because in order to read 10 properties, if you will write 10 variables, again that is a cumbersome task. So the easy way is a third way. You just do it like this. You just say configuration, new configuration, add annotated class, and return the thing. So we will say where are the properties. So the interesting part is this time we are going to create a file named as hibernate.properties, and it will be loaded automatically. You don't need to do anything for this, and here only you can just write all your key value pairs. So this is the key, this is the value. Same thing you were writing in your class earlier, and same thing you were writing in your XML file also earlier. There the difficulty was XML file. Second time the difficulty was multiple changes, and this time there is no difficulty. Like these names we are going to copy generally, all these keys, and they need to be as it is. If we will again say that okay, here also we will make a mistake, then that is not a good thing. Now here, if you wish to make a change, you just do a change here, automatically it will be read. There is no issue. You don't need to have multiple string variables in order to read, and we are going to use this way only. So this is something which we are going to use here. Now the final part for this deck is our architecture. So this we are going to see, and after this we are going to move towards our code. So till now you understood that in order to work with the Hibernate, we basically need two things. One is the database information. For this we have decided to go for Hibernate.properties, and the second one is mapping information, for which we have decided to go for the annotations. If you have chosen something else, then you can tell me, but at least don't mix match the things. Don't say that for some of the things I will use entities, some of the things I will use the XML. Then it is going to be very much messy, and it is not going to be easier for you to understand also. That's why I'm going with the best practices. Now what we were doing, we were making usage of a configuration class in that particular thing, and with the help of configure. So generally configure is used for the XML, but just let's say that I'm making usage of some way configure and reading all the properties. For properties file, you don't need this configure method explicitly. And then with the help of add annotated class, you were reading all the mapping information. So our configuration is ready. Next, with the help of this configuration, we will create a session factory. So we will make usage of build session factory method, and we will create a session factory. Now what is this session factory? If you remember, it was also there in our XML file also initially. So what this session factory is going to do? So let's try to understand that this session factory is something like a key. So imagine your database to be a kind of a locker, and this session factory is a key to that particular locker. And this key is having all the information. Why? Because you have mentioned it here. So in the configure, all the information of database, all the information of the mapping class you have only provided. So this key is having each and every thing, and hence you will get a session factory. Generally in one full project, we will just make usage of one single session factory, because we need to interact with one single database. If they are multiple, then you may need to go for some different options also, but generally it is one only, and this is immutable in nature. We don't make usage of multiple session factories. So I just saw I saw one code where the person was building the session factory again and again, and that is also a wrong practice. You just need to build once and then use it again and again. So you need to go for something like a singleton pattern here for the session factory. Now once it is done, so you have a key. Now every time whenever you wish to open, so you will lock in the key and you will open the session. So it will provide you the session. You will interact with your locker, interact with your database, do the things, and again you will close the locker. So open the session, close the session. So this is something which you will do again and again. Another part is session will help you with your primary cache. I told you cache is going to help you in order to make your application faster. So session is something which is going to be there, primary cache by default. Session factory will help you with the secondary level cache. So that you need to enable explicitly. Yep. Now session will provide you most of the methods in order to read, in order to write, in order to update, in order to delete from the database. But generally you need that whenever we are making any kind of changes in the database. So we need to work with the transactions also, because I don't want that if I do multiple changes in my database, some of them get saved, some of them don't get saved. So generally we work with the transaction. So within the session, we can start a transaction. If we are doing any performing operations like creating, or we can say something like updating or deleting, then we will go for transaction. Otherwise, we will directly make usage of the method from the session, and we will read the values and do our job as it is. So this is a good architecture of Hibernate here, which we are going to use. Now today, we are not going to create this transaction. We are not going to create the session. We will do the things till this session factory only. So if everything is clear till now, let's do the things practically. And again, remember, only one single session factory per project. Multiple sessions allowed, but single session factory. If you will make multiple, then you will going to have some kind of issue in one on the another place. Now let's start with the practical part of Hibernate. So here I'm in my IDE and you can see I'm having demo 1. Demo 0 I have already explained, and it was only with the help of JDBC in my previous video. So this is the demo 1, and as you can see here I'm having a pom.xml, then src test java is empty, src main resources is just containing the required SQL files, and these are the same files like the previous one. Then in my src main java I'm only having 3 folders, because as I told you that in this demo we are not going to do the complete thing, we are just going to do the basic required Hibernate configuration. So here I'm having my owner class, so where you can see I'm having all the variables and the getter setter methods and the toString method. Then beside this I'm having my enums here, the gender enum is there and this pet type enum is there. And here we don't need any particular change, so I'll just close this. And here I'm having my demo class, so where I will be writing the required logic for the minimum Hibernate connection. And today we are just going to see that much things. Then in the next video we will see the CRUD operations and again the full-fledged demo. So till then again you can revisit demo 0 and demo 1 and you can revise all the concepts before our next video. So now in order to start with the Hibernate, let's first of all go to this pom.xml, and here we are. So currently we are just having the MySQL dependency here, and the version, as you can see, this is the latest one, that is 8.2.0. So for Hibernate, I just now told you that we just need one single dependency as of now, that is Hibernate-core. So let's go and see how to get it. So we'll go to this Maven repository where we get all the things, and here you can just search, or I just kept on searching, so I found this Hibernate core. So you can just say like Hibernate or something like this. Now again when we search, we are getting two options here for the same Hibernate core thing. If you just say Hibernate, then too many things will come, but for Hibernate core basically two options are coming. Both of them are from Hibernate also, and the common rule which I always say is to check their last release date. So we'll say that okay, both of them are having the same date. Then I say check the usage. So since it is having more usage, so I guess this is the right one. So let's go there. Now here this only says that okay, you should move towards this org.hibernate.orm. So hence they are moving all their artifacts from that particular package of this particular as org hibernate to org hibernate.orm. So hence we should go that one, not the previous one, because let's say today they are supporting both the versions, but in future they may go for this ORM thing only. So we should go there. Now here the latest version is 6.4.0, but this is a CR1 version, and you can also see it is little pinkish or red color here. Now this CR is like common availability one as of now, and this is not a complete version, so it is something like a beta version for them. Hence in always your production code you should never go for a beta version, you should always go for the complete released or the final version. So here as of now the final version is 631, and if we compare, so you see that when 630 CR1 was released, it was in July 21. Then the actual final one got released in September 1. So there was a few months gap. So this CR1 got released now only in October 26. So I'm assuming that the final version will be released maybe in December end or maybe by January. So till then, as of now, we are happy with this 6.3.1 final. So let's click on this one and then let's choose this. So here let me just say copy, or otherwise it is already copied, and we'll just go here and I'll paste it here, something like this, and then I'll say Control Shift F in order to format the things. Now I don't need this comment, so let me just remove this. And as I told you that in future maybe I may need to go for multiple dependencies of Hibernate, then all of them should have a similar version. So instead of writing it here, what I'll do is I'll just write here, and order doesn't matters, you can write it before or after, that is your choice. So I'll just call it as hibernate.version. Again you can give any name, So it's not mandatory that you use the term Hibernate only. But if you will use the terminate term as abc.version, and then here you will say abc.version, it will look odd. Hence, we should generally write the same term. So let's paste it here. Now this Hibernate version, let's copy from here. And what we will do is we will replace it like this. So we'll say dollar symbol, and then we'll put a placeholder here. So automatically it will take the version as 6.3.1 final. So for Hibernate, this is the one. For MySQL, this is the one. In future, whenever the version is going to change, you just need to change these two lines, like depending on whatever the version you are changing for MySQL or Hibernate. Below things are going to remain as it is, and every time you don't need to scroll down. So that's again a advantage here. So now we have got the Hibernate things for us. Let's check in the Maven dependencies if it got updated or not. So if I just click here, so I can see Hibernate is there. An interesting thing is JPA is also there. So after a particular version, they started calling it as Jakarta Persistence API instead of Java Persistence API, but it's same thing only. So there is a different story for that. So this JPA will come automatically. And as I told you, Hibernate is implementation. It's a tool. JPA is the specification. So you are getting JPA things as well as Hibernate things. Now it is your choice whether you want to use Hibernate methods or the common JPA methods, so that later on you can move. Both of them have their own advantages and disadvantages. Currently, since we are learning Hibernate, so we'll focus more on Hibernate, and our last demo will be a purely JPA based. So there we will be able to compare more easily that when JPA is helpful and when not. So as of now, let's close it. So we have this Hibernate version with us, and that's it. It's done. Now pom.xml is over. Now let's go to this owner. So here our job is to map this particular class to our table. For this I gave you two options just now. One option was to make usage of owner.hbm.xml XML file, but that was little difficult, and again there are chances I'll make a mistake in that. So better is I will just write the annotations here. Now I need to create a table for this. So let me say here @entity. So this @entity I'll say control space, and then it is showing me this option from Jakarta.persistence. So I'll just select this. So now what it will do is it will create a table for this particular class owner. The name of the table is going to be owner only. By default it is the same name as your class name, but I want it to be a different name. So here I'll just say @table. Again the order doesn't matters. Whether you set entity annotation first or table annotation first, both of them are one and the same thing. Now this is coming from two options, Jakarta as well as Hibernate. Now here the thing is, if you will use Jakarta, so you are directly using from the specification. Tomorrow you will move to Eclipse link or MyBetis, you don't need to make any change here. If you say no, I will be using the Hibernate one, it may just give you a very minimalistic advantage which is not required as of now, but then if you will move to some other provider, then it will be a difficult part. So generally all the annotations we take from Jakarta only, that is JPA. So let's choose this one. And it's very important because generally people feel that okay, why everyone is just importing from there, why not Hibernate? So this is the actual reason. Yeah. Now in the table I told you that here we can change the name of the class. Let's see how. So I'll just click on this table. Again it's important that you know how to read your annotations completely, not only use them. So here we have all these things, name, catalog, schema, and everything we can provide here. Now this name is the name of the table, and by default it is same as the entity table, so we'll use this. So I will use it like this. I will say here name, then space, and I will be saying here owner underscore table. It is just completely your choice. I just want to go by this name as of now. So we'll say owner underscore table. And generally it's a practice that in the tables in the database we will be going with this snake case approach. Then let's come towards our variables. So ID I want to make it as a primary key. So I'll just say here @ID, and again from the Jakarta I will be getting all these things. So this ID is there. Now in the table also, I just want to call it as ID only. So I don't want to change its name. Since it's a primary key, so obviously it is going to be not null in nature. So that's it for this one. Currently, this ID is not going to be auto-generated. I need to provide. Now, if you will say me that what if we have multiple classes, what if we want to auto-generate? So I have already told you that we are having around 19 to 20 demos only. So you just need to wait and watch. Now the next one is first name. Now here, if I don't use anything, so what will happen is by default it will create a column in the database. You can also try that, and the name of that column is going to be first name as it is. This is the same thing it will write in the column, but generally we don't like it in that way. We want it in to be a snake case approach. So here we will just rename it with the help of column, something like this. So we'll say column. Now within the column, again let's see what all options we are having here. So if I just, so for this what I'm just simply doing is I'm just pressing the control button and then left click I'm doing here. So it's opening the things for me. So the first thing is name. So if I use name, I can change it. So let me just use it like this, and here I will say name, and then I will just say first underscore name. Again, it is your choice. You can just change it to be completely thing only. You can call it as first English name or whatever it is. So it will map your first name to first underscore name. Now I also want this thing to be as non-nullable. I want that everyone should have a first name. It should not be a choice to someone. So I want it that way. So for this one, what can be done? So here it says nullable. So by default this nullable is true, which means a column can be null in nature. I don't want it to be null in nature. So let me make it as false. So I will say here nullable, and then I'll just say here false. So nullable is false here, and since it's a boolean, I don't need double inverted commas. It's a boolean here. So now it can't be null in nature. Then if you want to make it unique, so by default it is false. Things are not unique, but how can a first name be unique? So we don't want that one. Then there are other options also. Do you want that it can be updatable or not? Do you want it to be insertable or not? Some column definitions, table, length also. So by default length is always 255 generally. So you can increase decrease accordingly. Then this is precision, this is for decimal generally, scale is also for decimal, so you can do. As of now I'm happy with this much things. Now let me just copy and do the same thing for others also very quickly, and then I'll resume the things and show you what I have done, otherwise it will take time. So here we are, and as you can see that I have updated most of the things. So for last name also I have done the same thing, nullable false. For gender I don't have any issue, like it's a single name only, so same name will appear, so I'm just saying nullable false. City, same thing for the state, same thing for the mobile number. Now I want mobile numbers to be unique, so I'm saying here that it should be unique and true. Now I told you by default the length of a string is going to be 255, but a mobile number can't be of 255 characters. So I'm saying the maximum length can be 10 here. Now it doesn't mean that always it will be only exactly 10. For that you need to do some other different kind of validations also. But here it says maximum data which can be saved in that column is going to be of 10 size. Then for the email ID we are just saying unique as true also besides this. Then we are saying pet ID, nullable false, pet name, date of birth. Say I'm changing it completely. So it was birth date, I have changed it to completely to pet date of birth. And again this is your choice. Why I'm just using the term pet here, so that we can differentiate easily between the gender of owner and gender of pet. So same thing for others also. So something like this has been done, and you can try other options also depending on your requirement. It's not mandatory to use all of them, it's only as per the requirement. I'm not always saying unique again and again. And if you wish that something can be null, so let's say you say that okay, everyone don't have a last name, some people don't try to go for a last name, they want to keep it as empty. So you can make this, you can remove this nullable part, and by default it can be null. but as per our requirement of the application, we need to go for nullable equals to false. Now the next important thing is that here it is able to map everything: integer, string, then local date, and the enums also. So gender and pet types are the enum. For enum, I told you that there is one more annotation, and that annotation is @enumerated. So here we will just say like this, @enumerated. So again, this is from Jakarta. So in the previous versions, you will find it as javax.persistence. In the later versions, you will find it as jakarta.persistence. So that is the thing here. So we'll just say enumerated here. Now, only writing this much, will it do my job? The answer is yes. If you will just write this much, it is going to do your job. You don't need to write anything else. But let's see what are the different options available here. So when we say enumerated, there is an option of value. Now by default, this value is ordinal. So what it means? So let's say that now if I will save this thing in my database, and then let's say for the gender, I have two options as of now, male and female. So now if I say a person, the owner is male, so in the database, it will save 1 for the male and 2 for the female, because that is the ordinal of male. It is on index 1, this is on index 2. Same for the pet type, bird is 1, cat is 2, dog is 3, fish is 4, rabbit is 5. Just a serial order here. But I don't want that. It will become difficult for me. I need to think that okay, what 1 means, what 2 means, or what something means. I want it to use the word as it is and not the index of thing. So hence, instead of making it as ordinal, what I needs to do is I'll just copy this thing from here. So copy, and I'll use it as it is. So here I will just say like this, value, something like this, enum type and dot, and then again two options are there, ordinal or string. So by default it is ordinal, which means 1 2 3. I want it to be as a string, so I'll use it like this. So I hope it is again clear that if you don't use this bracket here, then what is the consequence? It will save it as 1 2 3 4. So let's copy this same thing and put it on this particular thing also, as well as this particular thing also. You can try all those options, and as you know, I will be providing you the demo from the gate. So you download, you import the things, you try to make the changes, and then you tell me whether the things are working or not as per expectations. So again, this class is ready for us, and there is no other change in the bottom part. So only there were changes here. So let's close all these things also, and here we have all our annotations. Ensure everyone is from Jakarta only. If you will go for Hibernate, then later on you will face issue if you are planning to switch, and generally it's a rule that we should take it from here only, from the main specification. So this owner part is also done for us. So we have changed the pom.xml, the entity also, and then now let's move for the last part of the demo class. So in the demo class, we will learn that how to configure all these things which we are just using as of now. So let's start here. So in this one, as I told you, the starting part is going to be configuration. So we'll just write here configuration. Or one thing, if you see, we are missing one thing. Can you tell me in the comment section as of now what we are missing before going towards the configuration? We have already done the mapping, but we are still missing something. So that something is the database details. So those details we have not provided. If you want to see this, so this is just a data SQL. So I can open it with this one, SQL file editor, or not with the SQL file editor. Let me try to open this with something, what it is. So let's say text editor. So this is just data. So what I'll later on do is, once my data and everything is ready, I'll copy and paste it so that I can see all the data 72. So I'm just providing it to you as it is, this data.sql also. So this is the way. So later on, whatever the table will be created, it will look like this. Why I'm having it beforehand? Because I know I have tried all the things once and then I'm showing you out here. So things are going to look like this, but we need the things. For that also, I told you there are three options. One option is that you put up it in some XML file. Other option is you directly put the things here. So let's see how to do that. So we'll just say configuration here, and here we will save it in this configuration variable. Generally I like this. I don't need to think much while writing the name of the variables if I use this way. So whatever is the name of the class or the name of the interface, I'll try to use as it is. So I'll say new of configuration, and here this one is from Hibernate. So this one needs to be from Hibernate, not anything else. So this is the one. So later on, if you will move to some other tool, you need to change this particular class. So here we will say new of configuration. Now after this, if you say here configure this one, then what happens is that you can use some Hibernate configuration file somewhere, hibernate.cfg.xml, and then it will be read automatically. If the name of file is different, then you just need to provide the name here. That is one option. Other option is that instead of doing all the things here, because we don't like XML, so we can just say here dot set, and here we can say set property. So we can set the property here, we can provide the property name and the value. But the disadvantage is that if I need to change, I need to recompile my class. So that also I don't want. And also it will become little difficult again and again to check here. Or maybe when your code is in production, you want to change the values frequently and you don't want all the configuration in your main class. Maybe you want to keep it somewhere in a secret. So hence it's better to keep it outside your class. So we will keep those things somewhere else. But at least we need to add the annotation class. So for that we will just say add annotated class like this, and here we are going to say that my annotated class is going to be this owner.class. So this is the one. I'll just say Control Shift O so that it gets imported. So that has been done for me. Now this is done, but as of now still we have not provided at hibernate.properties. That we will write in some time. Let me finish this part first. Now the next part is that we need to create the session factory here. We need to build that. Now for building that session factory, we can directly say something like this, that we have this configuration, and then here we can say build session factory. Now there are two options. One option is you directly say like this. Other option is service registry. Now generally we can go for the default service registry. Service registry generally helps you with all those extra things like the caching mechanism, the transactions, and all those by default things if you wish. So if you wish, you can use the default one. Generally later on, whenever your code is going to increase, you may want to add more services also. So let's try to add more services, and let's go for this service registry as a good practice so that there is no other issue. So we are using this, but we need to create this service registry. That's the issue first of all. So let's see how to create the service registry. So for this we just need to say it like here and here, and the class name is service registry. That's the interesting part. So this is the one, and in order to get this service registry, we will just say here new of standard, something like this. Let's start writing standard, and then let's say this service, and here we get standard service registry builder. So we will be using this particular one, and here we need to add our settings also. So whatever the settings we provided in the configuration, we need to add all those things here. So here we will say apply settings, and in this we will just use all those things. So we will say configuration dot get properties. So here we will add all those properties, and this way we are going to build our service registry also. So it will take care of all your services. So here also, if you see, it's a registry of services which we are getting by default. So even if you don't write, then also it will work for a basic demo. But generally when you are working with the actual project, then you may need to add few more extra things. As of now we are not covering all those things in detail, but still as a practice we are writing it, so that later on whenever there is any requirement, you can just use and add the things here. Otherwise this is the minimalistic thing we need to go for. Now this is going to provide you a session factory. As of now, since it's a demo part and we are just writing, so hence we are putting it in the main method. Later on we will see that for this also we will create a separate config class. We will just create the session factory once and keep on getting use that particular session factory, but those things we are going to see in the next demo. As of now, let it be a simplest one. So we have done this. Now still also that hibernate.properties is not there, so let's add it, otherwise it will say I didn't found anything. So here we'll just say new, and here we are not getting direct option. Okay, I'm getting this file. If you don't get, you can go to this other. So you just need to say something like file here. So where is that file? So this is the one. I'm getting a file and the name should be same. Otherwise you need to do hard work in order to tell it. And I mean, what's wrong with the same name if we use? It's easy. And just ensure that the spelling is right. It should be hibernate.properties. Generally it happens we may go for a spelling mistake here. So I need to provide the properties here. So which all properties I need to add? Let me just add all those properties here quickly, and then I'll tell you that okay, what is the reason for adding those properties and from where you can get to know which all properties needs to be added. So here I have added all the required 9 properties. I won't say all the required 9 properties because there are some extra properties also. Yeah, and I'll tell you what was the source for them, but let me first try to explain why I have added which particular property. So first of all, I'm saying here driver class. So it is hibernate.connection.driver class. Now this I guess is the minimum thing which we need here, because we need to tell the driver class name. If you remember when we were working with JDBC, at that time also we used to provide the driver name, and this driver name is same in both the cases. So this is the same thing which we used to write in the JDBC, because this thing is actually related with the MySQL. So with JDBC also it was MySQL, with Hibernate also it is MySQL, hence it is same. Now the next thing is URL of the database. So that is also same. So it is JDBC colon MySQL, port number is 3307. I'm using deliberately, default is 3306, and my schema name is going to be Pakistan, which I want to use. My username, password, so these are also there. Then I'm writing here something like dialect. So first of all, this is something new, dialect. It was not there earlier. So why do we need it? So again, you see that when we are making usage of MySQL, so within MySQL also there were different versions. There was MySQL 5, there was MySQL 8, and before that also there was different versions. MySQL 8 is the latest one. So what happens is whenever they are changing the version, sometimes they change the meaning of some of the things, or not the meaning, sometimes the syntax get changes or some of the things get changes. Maybe sometimes it is a little difficult to map the data part. So here like in our entity I was using int. So how will it map the int to the required data type? How it will map the string to the required data type? Or how will it map the completely local date to the required data type? All those information are being provided in this MySQL dialect. And if you see, this is something which we are getting from this org Hibernate only, and we were using it by default. So we are writing like this. Same way for Postgre there will be a different dialect, for some other thing there will be a different dialect. Now generally people have a practice that here they write something like this. So they say that okay, if it is 5 then you should write it as 58, or if it is 8 then you should write it as 8. So there is nothing wrong with them. If you write here 58 or 8, then also it is fine, but the latest one is MySQL dialect. So this is the latest name which is even after both those names. So hence we should be using the latest dialect name here, so that it identifies the dialect very easily, that how to convert the required data type. Sometimes it happens because you want to use some custom dialect, hence at those times it is very important. Then here we are saying Hibernate HBM2 DDL auto. So here what it does it means. So here we are making usage of the term update. So what this update basically means is that whenever I will be running the application, now let's say if I'm running it for the first time and table doesn't exist, so it will create the table for me. And if the table already exists, then it will try to update it as per my entity class. Maybe in between I have added some particular variable, I have removed something, or maybe some kind of mapping or some kind of constraint I have added, so it will try to update it for me. So hence I'm doing it like this so that it automatically updates. Again, this depends that in production how you want. You don't want it to be updated every time, because by mistake if you will make a change in the entity class and you run it like this, it will change your table. So you don't want it to update always. So that depends on the requirements, that also you can check. But for the minimum demos, this update is a very good one, and it's a helpful because it will automatically keep on updating your database. So that was about this. Now the next one is show SQL. So what happens is that here when Hibernate is going to work, I told you you don't need to work with the SQL. Most of the times methods are there. You can just use them for saving the data, updating the data, deleting the data, reading from the database. But if you find any discrepancy, then you want to see that okay, what kind of query got executed. Now if you want to see what query got executed, the option is console. You can check here, but query will come only when you say show SQL equals to true. By default it is false, so it won't show the SQL. So by this it will tell you that for that particular method or for your SQL, what SQL was generated. So that is the purpose of it. I hope it's clear. The next one is format SQL. So what is the meaning of it? So this can be added only after the seventh one. Yeah, because seventh says show SQL. But the point is then it will show a very big statement. So that line will start from this particular end, then it will still keep on going, and you may need to scroll from left to right. It will be everything in a single line. It may be multiple joins or so many things extra, etc. So if you want to see it in a more readable way, so you may say format SQL. Now with format SQL, what it is going to do, it is going to break up it in multiple lines. Instead of a very big single line, it will show you in multiple lines in an easier way. So hence we can say format SQL. Again, this is optional. Then we say highlight SQL. Now what is the purpose of this? So again, this will come after 7th only. It's your choice whether you want to go for 8th or not, but it will for sure come after 7th. So the reason is when you will use this show SQL, it will show everything in the white color. So everything, whether it's a keyword, whether it's a table name, whether it's a column name, whether it's a data type or whatever it is, it will show in the white color. But if you want it to be a more readable, you want data type to be of different color, the column name to be of different color, then you can say highlight SQL. You will come to know very soon why I'm saying so. By default, all these three are false. So if you won't write them, you won't see the things. If you won't write, you won't see it colorful. If you won't write, you won't see it formatted. If you don't write, you won't it all see at all. So these are optional. It is your choice. As a newcomer, I say that when you are learning, then you can keep this. Later on, when you feel that okay, now I don't need it in my production, you can remove the things from there. Or it is just your choice. You just want to see the show SQL. My purpose was to show you the things. Hence, I'm making usage of all of them. This is again, I say that will be required that if you are a fresher, it's good that for learning purpose you are writing this. Later on, depending on the project requirements, you can choose whether or not to write this, and I'll show you what all other options are also there. Then this dialect. So this dialect will come to know very soon that whether we should write it or not. So that we will see that when we are going to run this. Then these three things are for sure mandatory, or even I can say these four things are mandatory here. So these should be always there in your code. So these four are the mandatory. This we will decide very soon. This is again your choice, and these are again your choice as per the requirement. But when you are just learning the things, it's always better to have this so that you can deduce the things easily and you can see what's going on in the backend. So now let's run this first, and after that I'll tell you that why I have used which one. So let me run this one here, and as you can see that here I'm getting some particular error that it is not able to see the database is Pakistan. So first of all, that is not there. Now you will say that okay, you have used update. Update will only create the tables, not the schema or the database that you need to create. How it took the name from here. So that is one issue. Let's see if we have any other thing. So here it was able to get a Hibernate version 631 final depending on pom.xml. Then it was able to read all the Hibernate properties you see. It is able to read the things. Second level cache is by default disabled. It's not there. Then here look for the warnings. Try to remove all the warnings. So this warning says that okay, try to go for a built-in your own custom connection pool. So generally when we are in the production, we should say that how many connections we should have with the database and all, but it is only required for the production. So they also say that don't use the default one in production. As of now we are just learning, so it's fine. Then it says loaded this particular driver, that's fine. And then username and password it's not showing, see in the things. And then it says that okay, all these things are there, it is giving me some warning and everything, and that's because we are not having this particular Pakistan. And then there is one more warning regarding this dialect. If you see, it says that MySQL dialect does not need to be specified explicitly. So currently it says it's not required to be mentioned explicitly. Sometimes it is required. So generally when you are moving your code, let's say to some part sometime to a cloud, let's say Azure cloud, AWS cloud, then generally it is required, because then some issues may happen. As of now when you are just running it locally, it's not needed and you can just remove it like this. So from now onwards we are not going to put it here, and instead of removing completely so that you remember we used it, so we'll just say hash here. This will make it a comment. So we won't use it because it is provided by default. So until unless you are planning to go for some different one, there is no need to use. It will automatically deduce how from your dependency. Another thing is that we are also going to comment this particular thing, the driver name. You will see how it will understand from your dependency. Since we are having only one dependency, that is for MySQL, we are removing both the things because we are going to use only MySQL. It is very clear. In case if there are two different dependencies, let's say MySQL is there, H2 is there, then it will get confused which one to use, MySQL or H2. At that time it is important to write which driver, which dialect you need. If there is only one dependency, no need to write. In all our demos, it will be only MySQL dependency. Hence, we are not going to write these two things from the next demos. And in the next demos, you will just see only these three important things and these four optional things. So I hope that is clear, and let's rerun this. Okay, I didn't yet created this Pakistan. So let me just create this one. So I'll copy it here and I'll go to this one, and here I'll say create schema. I'll put the name here. I'll say apply, and this is again apply. This is finish, and here it is. So we have this Pakistan. Currently see it is empty. So now I'll just come up here and I'll click on this one, and this time again it has started. Let's see whether do we have still have warnings. So yeah, everything looks fine here. There is just one warning for the connection pool, but it says no issues, it is for the production. And yeah, there is no other warning. So try to have no other warnings, and you see it automatically loaded the driver. So this time even I commented, it loaded because there was just a single dependency. Same way it automatically identified the dialect also. So that is the thing. And these are the query guys which I was talking about. Since I'm using show SQL, so it is showing me the query. Since I'm using format, it is showing me it in multiple lines like this. And since I'm using this highlight SQL, you can see some of the things are in green, some of the things are in white color, some of the things are in blue color, and in between this Hibernate keyword is in, I guess it's violet color or purple color. So you can see. So these are the things which we are having up here. And let me just refresh the things here. So here if we see, so we are just having the owner table with us, so it's there. And if I click on this one, so it is going to show me all the required columns also here. So that way it created as per my requirement. And if you click on this, here it will show you the required data type. So integer, ID is a primary key, and then all things it is showing to me. So this way we have done and we have ran the basic things, and that's it what you need with the Hibernate. Now in the next part, let's see that how we can get these properties and what all can be the different properties, if there is any documentation from where to read regarding the Hibernate beside these videos. So for this we will just go here, and here I have already made it a bookmark. I'll provide you the link directly in the description. So why this documentation is important is that in future, after some years, this version is not going to be the latest one, and then there are some more changes are also going to come. So at that time you should have at least an idea how to identify the things on your own beside this video also. So as you can see that in a version also, in our demo also, we were making usage of 631 final. So this documentation is completely as per 631 final. Here you can see each and everything regarding the Hibernate from A to Z you can read. The only difficulty is that if you will read directly, then you are just going to read the things, but you need to make some practicals also so that you can understand better, and hence it is important to put more focus on the videos so that you can see how everything is going on. Most of the things I'm going to cover in my videos. Beside this, if there is one or two extra things wherever we will feel that okay, that cannot be covered in the video, I'll tell you, and then you can again cover the things from here. Then if we go down here, so let's just move down. So here you can see all the things. So the basic introduction, the configuration. So see, so many configuration is given. I have just provided you the minimalistic configuration. So instead of reading everything, you are just watching the video and it's enough. So entity classes and everything, all the mappings, we are going to cover each and everything from here. Now here what we will do is we'll just come down and you will find there is something like user guide. So let's open this. There is a Hibernate query language also. So later on we will read this HQL part also, something in our demos, but again our basic demos is enough for the basic part. Later on if you want to check out something extra, then again you can see all these things. So here we will go for the basic user guide. Here also you can choose for whichever version. Currently the latest one is 6.1 thing, and that is the latest. I mean, even if you say current, then also it will take you to this 631, and both of them are like almost same. So from here we'll go to this configuration section, because currently my part was that how to identify which Hibernate property to use. So now let's come back here to our code, and we were making usage of this property hibernate.connection.url. Let's go back here and I'll just say Control F and I'll search for this one. So you see it is showing me that okay, this is the property and from where it can be set. So it is providing all the details regarding this. So same way you can have an idea for all the different properties which you can make usage of. So that can be checked here, the different Jakarta compliances, but all these many things you don't need in a common demo until unless you are making something extraordinary, then you don't need this. The minimum thing which I have provided, only that much is sufficient. Besides this, if you need anything extra, then you can easily search the things here. So here all the product name, version, and this JDBC driver and everything. So directly with the Jakarta also you can use. So like here you see that we are making usage with the help of Hibernate. So this is Hibernate specific. If you want to make directly Jakarta specific, that also can be used here. Generally it is Hibernate specific things are used here instead of the Jakarta specific things. So I hope that's enough with this video, and I hope that you have found it interesting. If yes, then please do like the video, please share it with your friends. Also you need to comment down in the section so that YouTube also understand that it's a good video. And then in the next video we are going to convert it to a complete full-fledged demo. So what I'll be basically doing is that I'll combining demo 0 and this demo, and then from there onwards our main focus will be on the data access layer or the repository layer, and we'll see the different CRUD operations with the help of Hibernate. So thanks once again.